Hello, Mavs fans. Welcome to another episode of Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, joined by Josh Bowe. It's a little before 9 o'clock on February 27th. The Dallas Mavericks just lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers on the longest buzzer beater in NBA history. Josh, what's it like to
second longest, Kirk? Excuse me.
Okay.
Don't you dare do that to Devontae Graham, former Kansas Jayhawk, one of my favorite players. I'm just kidding.
I didn't. Okay, I really honestly thought I saw longest. So the Mavericks fell 121 to 119. Max Strus buried 5 threes in the final. What was it? 4 minutes?
About 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes.
4 or 5 minutes of a game after the Dallas Mavericks had taken a commanding lead.
Yeah, they're up 10.
They're up 10 after really one of the. We'll get to this in due time, but really like a beautiful possession of role players with Maxi Kleber busting his ass to get an offensive rebound, passing the ball out, getting the ball back, and burying a three to really what felt like seal the game for the Mavericks. And it didn't. And so, we had a little bit of time. Like my Twitter feed is just a mess because it's like you get people responding.
People are mad, as they should be.
Yeah. And I think this game is like a Rorschach test. Is that what you say?
Rorschach. Yeah.
Whatever, the friggin' ink blob. This is the game that if you have a beef with the Mavericks, let's say it's the end of game play calling, or realistically what turned into an elaborate game of my turn, your turn, where Kyrie Irving attempted to make up for mistakes. Let's say it's the NBA officiating, which was I cannot wait to see the last 2-minute report on this game. That's going to be a riot. Let's say it's head watcher Jason Kidd. Let's say it's inbound plays where Luka gets the ball going away from the basket again.
But it worked.
It worked because
I know.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
I know.
Let's say it's Josh Green doing Josh Green things. It was really a remarkable game of one thing makes a difference. Tim Hardaway Jr., defensive stopper. Shout out Bob Sturm. If that's a thing, like one thing makes a difference in this game. That's kind of what I'm settling on. And the Mavericks walk away with a win, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, how many things happened when they went up 10 to end the game where if that one thing did the opposite, they win the game.
Right. Like Kyrie walking out of bounds. Like, for example, he was so mad. And here's the thing. He was wrong. Like, Tim Hardaway threw him the ball while he was in bounds and he walked out of bounds.
Right.
If Luka and Tim Hardaway switch better on one of the 2 threes where they had to switch onto Strus, maybe Strus misses. I don't know, man. Like, frankly,
where do you even want to start with this?
I think we got to start from the end and work backwards, because the end of the game was really, really insane. Luka Doncic gets the ball on the same horrid inbound design where he's getting the ball going away from the basket at the opposite corner. 2 Cavaliers screw up going for it. Luka slides in between them, and everybody thinks he's going to shoot it. Everybody thinks he's going to shoot it. You can tell the whole Cavs defense thought he was going to shoot it because there's only 8 seconds left. He gets into the lane with about 4 seconds remaining and leaves a beautiful dump-off pass to PJ Washington, who glides it over the rim while getting fouled for a no call. Then Max Strus gets the ball in the inbounds. There's about 2 seconds left, takes 2 hard dribbles, gets probably, I don't know, within 8 feet of the half court line, lets it fly. Luka was there. And honestly, man, I don't know I'm curious as to your thought. When I saw the shot, like just the way the shot came off his hands, I was like, oh no.
As soon as it left his hands, I was like, that's in.
It's a beautiful,
yeah.
Shooters have really distinct, good shooters have distinct form. And he was just on one at that point after hitting the previous 4. I don't even know if Strus is a good 3-point shooter this year.
Not this year. he entered.
Was he pretty good? He was pretty good in Miami.
Yes, he was good in Miami, but this season he's shooting, I think, 33% entering this game. He was 7 of 10 tonight.
Yeah, and he just the way it comes off his hands, it's like, oh fuck.
Oh yeah, he's a good shooter. That's been a thing with Cleveland. They don't understand why he's not making shots. He's still been useful for them because he's got the.
Oh, maybe he'll start making shots after that thing.
Yeah, because the gravity and the volume matters. He's still a threat. But yeah, that's been a storyline for the Cavs all season. It's why is he not making shots?
Right. And the secondary thing is Luka was there. And so, decent basketball strategy with 2.5 seconds left is don't foul, contest the shooter. Maybe the Mavs could have been up a little tighter, but you don't.
Yeah.
I don't think they had a foul. There's a little bit of confusion on that, but ultimately I don't really care. I don't want to focus on the one possession.
It's a 59-footer.
And then you back up from that, and there was, and please, you watched all this while we were getting ready, because we were trying to get ready for this. And before that, they're at the 24-second mark when the Cavs had gone up on and you didn't see this, but who's the Cavs center? What's wrong with me? Jared Allen, I'm pretty sure, did one of the most amazing Gortat screens for a 3-pointer that I've ever seen. I mean, we're talking, and you didn't see this, but I expect, go back and look at this after the game. He gives a 2-handed shove to Maxey that
I did see it.
Pushes him back length. That was an offensive foul. It just was. And then on the screen, destroys Josh Green. I've been really harsh on Josh, and he was actually pretty bad this game defensively. But on that play, he gets over the top of the screen while just getting broadsided by Jared Allen. And Donovan Mitchell hits a 30-foot bank shot. The Cavs are up at that point. Kyrie takes the ball down and then scores a quick 2-pointer. And then at that point, there's 24 seconds left. There's a timeout. So the Cavs don't have to get another shot up. And for some reason, there's a timeout called by the Cavs. So the Mavericks have time to set their defense.
And let everyone know what the plan is.
Uh-huh. And then the Cavs get the ball in, and I don't know how to describe the ensuing 14 seconds because the Mavericks probably had a plan to go for a steal, but they didn't cover the guy in the deep backcourt, which doesn't make any sense to me. They get the ball into the front court and proceed to do some soft doubles, which every single attempt there over that 14 seconds looked like a non-called foul. What did you think?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking that because it didn't look like they were trying to foul. And we've watched.
But they were still fouls. Like at that point when you're body bumping somebody and reaching for the ball, one of those over a 10-second span is gonna get called. And it just wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know, but it didn't look like the Mavs wanted to get called for because the refs are looking for the intentional foul, and it looked like they were almost giving the Mavs a break, because the Mavs were trying. I'm assuming the strategy was double, go for a steal, jump ball, whatever, and then foul. But so much time went off the clock.
So much time.
And they had a foul to give.
And you've got to foul at that point, but they didn't. And then what happened was one of the more bizarre, second and a half that you'll see in an NBA game. Where was it Donovan Mitchell or was it Darius? I think it was Garland.
Garland had the ball, and basically Josh Green channels his Dante DiVincenzo from the other night against the Pistons, and just
he kind of levels him.
Yeah.
It's like a tackle that's not a tackle. And Mavs fans are kind of, which includes us, but I watched it again. There was no jump ball. However, Garland goes to the ground and rolls around.
Right. It's either a foul or a travel.
That's a fucking travel. I watch YMCA basketball with 7-year-olds every week. You cannot roll on the ground. They emphasize that from very early on, and there's just nothing. They get a timeout called after he goes from, I'm pretty sure, being on his front to rolling over onto his behind while trying to keep the ball away from Josh. And at that point, they call it timeout. And like, you can see Kid is just like, I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of folks in the chat that are like, you can't blame this on Kid. Look, we'll get to Kid. But there's just no more perfect visual than him standing right there with his hands in his pockets. It drives me crazy. Anyway, they call that timeout. The Mavericks then play some great defense on the inbounds, and was it Green who knocked it off Garland?
Yeah.
And Green basically comes up with a great flush off, and that leads to the aforementioned play, because we're working backwards here, guys. But then before that, before the Donovan Mitchell bank three, before all this, the Mavericks had gone up 10, and now I'm going more linearly. I don't even know how to describe this. Can you kind of walk through what happened with the 4 Max Strus threes?
Yeah, so I think that's to me, the crazy part of the game is a crazy part of the game. We could talk about that. We could talk about, that part of the game is like more exasperating if you're a Mavs fan, more than like this is like trouble, because that was just wild. I don't know if you can like take how much you could take from like the final 30 seconds, other than that was some wild shit. But the Strus, like that's the meat and potatoes of this collapse that I think is meaningful. Like there's something to this, and it's kind of what the Indiana Pacers did to the Mavericks on Sunday, where they were basically like, let's get the Mavericks' worst defenders on the floor involved in some actions, because Luka started those possessions guarding Strus, and the Cavs basically took whoever THJ's man was and let Strus screen for that Cav player, so screening THJ. And I don't know what the Mavericks' defensive plan was, because THJ Luka looked like he was switching, and Tim looked like he was maybe trapping or trying to hedge, because he was not switching. Like Luka was switching and Tim Hardaway Jr. was not. So I don't know which one's right, which one's wrong.
Sure.
But I think the key thing is the Cavs very deliberately were like, let's let Luka and THJ make defensive decisions.
Yeah. And can
That's
we,
the thing.
Can I
That's
just
the
make
thing.
we should make an assumption here. THJ was supposed to switch. I feel pretty fucking confident in that.
Knowing how the Mavs like to play defense, I would say.
Yeah. So THJ was supposed to switch, which then begs the question. Okay, so you got four made threes.
And they're all almost, 2 of them are on those switching actions with Luka and THJ. And then one's in transition, which is Mavs bad in transition defense.
Always, forever.
And then the fourth one was Luka gets screened, and there's nothing. There's no help. Like Luka gets screened, like Maxey doesn't try to brush the screener, like the shooter coming out. Like there's zero communication. Like it's Luka running into a screen and Strus is wide open.
Yep.
So 2 of them are involving THJ and Luka, but it's pretty clear like the Cavs saw Luka on Strus, and like this wasn't like I think there's the desire from the fan base to be like, what are you gonna do? Strus kind of just went on a heater, and yeah, you could say that, especially on losing on a 59-footer at the buzzer. But I don't think it's a coincidence that the Cavs saw who was guarding Strus and who else was on the floor, and thinking, let's involve these guys in the decision making.
That's a tactical.
Because that's what happened against Indiana. The Pacers got Luka, Kyrie, and Tim Hardaway in motion, in rotation, in the blender, forcing them to scramble, make decisions, because they don't want to go against PJ Washington or Derek Lively or Josh Green. Like they want Luka to make a decision. They want THJ to make a decision. Like they want those guys to figure it out.
Max Strus's threes, let's just be clear of this. Max Strus's 4 threes were over the span of 67 seconds.
That's crazy.
Okay? 67 seconds. So the first one, Comes after a Kyrie Irving layup off a nice play from Maxey. He goes down and drills 3. Then Kyrie steps out of bounds, which he did. He stepped out of bounds. Like, that was a Kyrie mistake.
THJ inbounded the ball to him. They obviously either
miscommunication.
There was miscommunication from those two in some form.
It was a mistake. Like I that's not a ref's thing I'm thinking about.
No, that's not a ref.
4 seconds later, Max Strus hits a 3, where at that point it's 110-106. Mark Follows having a cow. Kyrie goes down, drills a 3. Gives the Mavs that 7-point lead again. 20 seconds later, Strus hits a really deep 28-footer from Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell assists on 3 of the 4 out of these. Then at this point, this was when, so those 3 happen within 45 seconds of one another, all 3 of those. Mavericks are up 113-109. This was the time. This was the time where you call a timeout. Unfortunately, Kyrie is kind of pretty pissed off at himself. I've very rarely seen Kyrie kind of this sort of vexed on the floor. He's usually he's not like he's out of control. He's just mad.
He's cool and collected.
Yeah.
Normally.
He wanted to make up, and he was stepping up to the challenge, so to speak. Mm-hmm. He goes down. Also shout out appear now and later for the quick tip. And then we had a tip earlier that I saw from Henry. So shout out to Henry for those tips. Really appreciate that sort of thing. So at that point, you're up 4. It's 3 minutes left, and the next dead ball, I'm pretty sure is a timeout. I could be wrong, but it's under 3 minutes. Like, a kid didn't have the use it or lose it timeout, I guess, which is normally like our joke in here. So Kyrie goes down and sort of forces up a shot. Doesn't go. And then Max Strus comes down and hits the 4th 3. And at that point is when Kid calls the timeout. And at that point is when he elected to get Josh Green back in the game. Now, there is some and again, I'm talking too much. Josh is the better analyst, but there's a lot of back and forth with people about Tim's ability. I stick with you in the sense of after the second 3, and particularly the third 3, you have to, as a coaching staff, understand the Cavs see something, even if it is just within 45 seconds. Call a timeout and please get Hardaway out of there. Again, that's just one. We've already been over a number of the things where this game could have gone differently. That's one of them that I think that whole stretch is probably the one that we're going to focus on the most as a fan base. What do you think?
Yeah, that was bizarre. Especially when it was, again, it was deliberate. Like, they basically went back-to-back possessions. It was basically 3 straight possessions where they went, oh, Luka's guarding Strus, we're going to involve him in some motion, like with THJ twice in a row. Then the out of bounds play where Allen screens Luka and no one helps, like just no communication. At that point, you would think you would want your best defenders on the floor. When you're trying to nurse a 10-point lead in the final minutes, I'm not sure why you need Kyrie, Luka, and Hardaway on the floor at the same time, because usually you want those 3 on the floor when you are trying to score some points. And when you have a 10-point lead with 4 minutes left, you do not need to score that many more points to win the game. You just need some stops. So I'm baffled by that decision-making towards the end, regardless of if it came after a timeout or not. There were dead ball opportunities as well. Like, it's not like he needed to call a timeout necessarily to get Green back in the game. Cavs had some turnovers. There was a dead ball before Strus made the 3rd 3-pointer off the inbounds play, off the baseline. Like, that could have been an opportunity to get Green back in the game. I'm not saying that changes anything necessarily. But yeah, it was, I don't know what the goal was when you get a 10-point lead, 3:57 left, and you're keeping your kind of offensive geared lineup on the floor. That was a little confusing, because as much as I have defended Tim Hardaway Jr. in the past, make no mistake, every time I defend him, it's because I think that his shooting and his volume shooting and gravity and spacing is really important on a team that doesn't have a lot of high volume 3-point shooters outside of Luka and Kyrie. the Mavericks, when you're up 110, 100 with 3:57 left, you do not need volume 3-point shooting. Yep. You do not need gravity and spacing. Obviously, you don't just want to punt every possession after that, and you still want to score some baskets, but I don't know. That was weird. I can't help but wonder if you look at the box score, Green was a -11 and Hardaway was a +10. We have said over and over again that in-game box score plus minus is a faulty stat. I think me and you know enough that, and this isn't just a Mavericks thing, but like coaches will look at that and they will make decisions based off that. I know Rick Carlisle did it. He always, one of the first things he would bring up in post-game pressers when I used to go and cover the games, he would talk about plus minus. He would literally look at the box score and look at a plus minus. And talk about it. And so he absolutely was paying attention to that in game. Not saying the coaches did in this instance, but I just wonder if kids saw that or if someone on the coaching staff saw that and was like, okay, well, let's ride with Tim. We've been winning his minutes. Josh, we've been losing his minutes. Let's keep him on the bench. Not saying that's what happened. I just wonder if
I always read our comments because I can't help myself. Shout out to Black Noir for saying we won't talk about Kidd as we're fucking talking about Jason Kidd. Stellar listening. Put on those listening ears, champ. God.
So yeah, I just think I don't know. It's like the last 30 seconds was chaos, but really the way that the Cavs
that game was lost at the 4-minute mark.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's the way I would describe this, because I'm more media than fan right now, so I'm not like steaming.
I'm fan. I am pissed.
You were mad. Yeah. You could be mad for me. So I apologize if people in the chat want me to like have like a bloodlust for this game. I think if you're a fan, you should be mad because that is a crappy way to lose a game. You blow a 10-point lead with 4 minutes left. You lose on a 59-foot shot at the buzzer. I never want to tell fans how to feel necessarily. Obviously, there's overreaction and things like that. But
usually it's my fault. Let's be
clear. But when a team loses a game like that, you're allowed to be mad. Like that's the whole point of being a fan. You should be pissed off. But
I haven't hurt like this after a game in a long time.
I know. That was a tough one. But I would say, the way the game ended the last 30 seconds, I wouldn't be fearful of that having anything like a lingering effect. The one thing I will say is that we are now 2 games in a row, and I think the Mavs are going to be fine. They play Toronto tomorrow. Toronto is not great, although they're playing better, but that's I would imagine there's no better scenario than those guys want to play right away and flush this game and beat up on a bad team. So that's what they do tomorrow. But what I'm going to say is this is 2 straight games now against 2 good teams. Pacers are a good team. Cleveland's, good Lord, they might finish the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference. They're really good. They're playing really well. So 2 straight games against 2 good
huge game for them.
Yes, it was.
Game for them. Yeah,
the race for the 2nd seed is huge because no one wants to play Boston in the 2nd round of those top 4 East teams. So this matters. These games really matter for these guys, for the 2 through 4 teams in the East. So what I'm trying to say, I know I'm really rambling.
No, I love this.
This is 2 straight games against 2 good teams. And the strategy, while differing a little bit, the overarching story is we are going to isolate your worst defenders and we are going to make them make decisions. We're not necessarily going to, isolate's a bad word, by the way, because they're not ISOing, because the Mavericks are actually pretty good switching and going one-on-one, defending one-on-one. But what they're clearly doing is they're like, we are going to make your below average defenders make decisions. Like that's the best way I can sum it up. That's what the Pacers did. You watch
weaknesses.
They're, teams are starting to realize, I don't think we want to go after Derek Lively or PJ Washington or Josh Green or Maxi Kleba. When you've got Luka and Kyrie and sometimes Tim Hardaway Jr., all 3 of those guys on the floor at the same time.
You can't play those 3 guys at the same time.
Why
would you do it?
Why would you can do it against bad teams, but if you're playing Cleveland, you're playing Indiana. They got away with it against Phoenix. I thought
Tim didn't get a lot of burn until later in the game. Did you notice that?
I did. Green played 29 minutes despite not playing most of the fourth quarter.
And Green hurts his elbow, which
how many times is he going to hurt his elbow?
Guys, look. I played basketball. till I was in my mid-20s, regularly competitively. I have never, ever seen anyone hurt their elbow like this guy hurts his elbow. Now, he came back in, which I was really pleased about. But when he jammed it on that dunk, I was like, oh no. Because that's what resulted in Tim's minutes. I really believe this. Because how many minutes? Let's see here. How many minutes did
Tim play 26?
Josh
you want to know fourth quarter minutes?
No, just total minutes. Josh Green finished with 29 minutes. Okay, he actually played quite a bit.
He played 5 minutes in the fourth, and Tim played 9. Tim played almost the entire fourth quarter.
Did you see what before this? We're just meandering now, and I need to take a quick break here. But
yeah, we do.
Can someone tell me what Jaden Hardy played 5 minutes and took 4 shots? How is that possible?
Getting him up, man. Because I think he knows that dude is not playing a lot. He knows he has to make the most of his opportunities. He's averaging 11 minutes per game in February. When he's getting in the game, he's averaging 11 minutes per game in February. He's averaging 6 shots.
That's amazing.
Okay. That's like a shot a minute. He's getting a shot every 2 minutes, basically.
Guys, we're 25 minutes into this beast, and I haven't shilled yet. So while all of you are here, if you could do me a favor and go ahead and like the stream, leave a comment on the video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I forgot to mention this the other day because it was during a loss. We hit 2,500 subs, which I'm really, really pleased with. I set that arbitrary asinine goal of 5,000 before the year. That's not really possible because we don't do enough stuff on socials to juice up some of our stats. But I'm really grateful for those of you who have subscribed. And if you could consider doing that, if you're here for the first time today, I would appreciate it. Those of you listening on audio feeds, please leave a review. That is very helpful to Josh and I. And again, if you want to send me an email, my email's out there. I always like talking basketball with people. Now we're going to pause for a brief break in the podcast for ad insertion, and then we will be right back. Okay, so there's a lot of other things we could kind of talk about here, and I think we do have to pay homage to Luka's really. This game wasn't a game without Luka going nuts.
This was low-key one of his best games of his career, it felt like.
It was. So how many, God, what were his final stats? 45 points on 29 shots, 14 assists, 9 boards, 3 steals. I thought he played better defense.
1 turnover, by the way.
1 turnover?
Yes. The Mavericks won the turnover battles. They had 5. Cleveland had 16, and they lost,
that's amazing. This is the second straight game where Kyrie was a bit his stats look fantastic. 30 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 12 and 24. His scoring came in flurries. His shooting was beautiful, but he had a kind of a rough start, started out 3 of 10. That kind of was part of the slow start for the Mavericks, but Luka sort of, puts them on their back, brings them back 57 to 60 halftime, and then the Mavericks made it a game. We just had to acknowledge those 2 players and what they contributed in their time. I thought this was one of PJ Washington's finest games so far. At one point, he was team high plus 20, maybe even higher than that, and then things went sideways. I
played a great defensive game.
He really did. Yeah. And then they got him involved offensively in ways that actually played to his strengths, where he wasn't just standing in the corner.
Yeah, where he's rolling and doing cool stuff.
That's right. That's right. So, all right. So we've got 3 multiple people in the chat. Gosh, I love it. I love when people say criticism is hating. If you don't like criticism go find another show. This isn't the show for you. We talk about things even-handedly. Good Christ. We've had a number of people in the chat ask a good question, and I think it is a good question because it doesn't really make sense at first until you explain it. Could you walk us through why Daniel Gafford got virtually no minutes tonight?
Oh, he got cooked tonight. The Cleveland made...
Why is he getting cooked?
Because the Mavericks have to play drop with him for the most part. And Cleveland just was like, okay, let's get him in the pick and roll, and we're going to get any shot we want. They made second quarter, which was where most of Gafford's minutes were. He played 3 minutes in the second quarter. Cleveland shot 11 of 15 from the floor, 7 of 10 from 3. It was like a clinic involving Gafford in a screen. They get him defending air, he's not really defending anyone. And they're just picking out shooters left and right. And Donovan Mitchell's walking in to pull up 3-pointers. He was 3 of 4 from 3 in the quarter. It was a clinic, and Gafford, like, he's not a switcher. He's a really good athlete, but he's a traditional big. He does not have the feet of a Derek Lively, but that's okay because he's a different kind of big, and he's your backup big. So I don't think it's a big deal. But this was a matchup that was just not for him. You've got two really good pick and roll guards in Garland and Mitchell, two guards that are comfortable scoring out of the pick and roll and pulling up for that jumper. You've got shooters and Strus and Levert and Yang that are totally cool making shots off movement. Like they just had Gafford in the blender. Like he just wasn't really guarding anyone. And then, Allen and Mobley are really good finishers around the rim, and they're also really good passers. Mobley had a couple of assists on the roll in that quarter. So yeah, like I know people are really mad that Maxey played the 5 a lot of the second half, but with the way the Cavs were 20 of 40 from 3, I mean, the way they were bombing away, I don't know what Gafford would have necessarily fixed. Cleveland only had 5 offensive rebounds. They only scored, they only scored 42 points in the paint, which is below league average. Like, this was not a game where the Mavericks were getting punished in the paint at the rim on the boards. They were getting punished from the perimeter, and the way that Cleveland was kind of stretching them out and forcing their worst defenders to make decisions. And Gafford is just not equipped to defend a game.
Do you think he's not equipped, or do you think he can't do it, or you think there hasn't been enough practice and film session and sort of like putting him through the paces to do it?
I'll say both, because he's never been an impact defender before he came to Dallas. But again, he's been playing for Washington for most of his career, and Washington's not a good defense as well. But that's kind of one of the things is he blocks a lot. He's been blocking a lot of shots, but he can kind of get taken advantage of at the basket or in the pick and roll. But again, he's your backup center, so I don't think that's that big a deal. Like, if he's not, if your backup isn't playing well, I understand Mavs fans might be frustrated because they did trade stuff to get him, but he's just another tool in the toolbox, so to speak. Like, he is not your closer. You would presume that you're either closing with Maxey in a small ball lineup, or you're closing with Lively, who I think is a better defender, even despite the fact that he's younger than Gafford.
Did Lively re-break his nose?
I don't know. I hope he didn't. He had an ice pack on it after the ball bounced right off his nose in the mask in the second half, and he was definitely in some discomfort there. So I hope not. I don't know what they got to do. They need to put like a steel lining over these guys' nose. I feel like everyone's breaking a nose every.
What are those? I think they're called like Halo. The helmets that NFL players wear during training camp that are like extra huge. Yeah. Like, we need to wear those.
Yeah, it looks like what's his face from Spaceballs.
Man, yeah. Well, and then this is one of these games where you go on a 7-game win streak, and you go on a 7-game win streak with certain things working. And then what was very important about the win streak is certain things weren't working, and they still won 7 games in a row. Then you lose a couple of games. The Pacers game was they lost by 20 at the end, but they had, I still think if they had done a couple of things differently, they might have at least taken that game to crunch time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that really Carlisle, like in hindsight, because I watched it again, Carlisle baited the Mavericks into ISO ball. Like, Luka scores a lot early, but there's no ball movement. Kyrie gets some great looks to go. There's not a lot of ball movement. Then there's nothing in terms of offensive actions almost the rest of the game. So it's like, that was frustrating. You lose that one, you go on.
Can I jump off that point?
Yeah, please do.
We are now 3 games in a row where the Mavericks scoring distribution has looked pretty similar. And they're all 3 games out of the All-Star break. So, you talked about baiting Luka into ISO ball. So first game out of the All-Star break, Phoenix, the Mavericks' top 4 scorers, Luka 41, Kyrie 29, PJ Washington 12, Tim Hardaway Jr. 12, Maxey 7. Mm-hmm. Pacers game, top 5 scorers, Luka 33, Kyrie 29, Josh Green 14, Tim Hardaway 11, Daniel Gafford 8. Now this loss against Cavaliers, top 5 scorers, Luka 45, Kyrie 30, PJ 11, Derek Lively 9, and Josh Green 7. That's 3 games in a row where Luka and Kyrie are not only your top 2 leading scorers, but you're far and away your top 2 leading
Right.
scorers.
That's problematic. That's very old school Mavericks.
And I'm, I don't have the synergy data. We don't have access to that high level of data, although we have friends that do, so maybe they can help us out. But remember, before All-Star break, Luka was the most blitzed player in the NBA in terms of doubles and on the pick and roll, the traps. I'm just talking off the top of my head here, but these last 3 games since the All-Star break, I have not seen that nearly to the same degree that we saw pre-All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if coaches got together or what, or
we're not going to blitz this guy.
Like, we're going to let him score 40, and we're going to trust that our defenders can let Maxi Kleba and Tim Hardaway Jr. and PJ Washington and these guys not score a bunch of points and kill us. Because All-Star break is the time when teams, it's basically the only time teams get to practice outside of training camp.
Yeah.
Like, be real. It's the only time teams get to kind of look at what's working in a long regular season and be like, what can we do? What can we change? Look at what other teams are doing.
Have you seen the Kyrie pick and roll at all since All-Star break?
Not a ton. I did see a lot of it going into the break.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I was actually going to write on it. Maybe I need to do a tale of 2 weeks or whatever, because I feel like that's kind of vaporized.
Like Kyrie in the short roll was disgusting.
Oh, yeah. He was screening for Luka, and Luka was getting walk up wide open threes, or they were doubled. Then they were doubling because they were freaking out and getting wide open corner threes. So yeah, we're 3 straight games now where it feels like everything is kind of top heavy, not a lot of blitzing. The ball movement has been okay. 24 assists against Phoenix, 15 assists against the Pacers, 23 assists against the Cavs. I don't know what the Mavs assist number is for the season, but I feel like under 25 assists for the Mavericks is low, and they've been that number 3 straight games. Why don't you filibuster? Because I want to look up and see how many assists they are averaging per season.
Oh, what can I filibuster about?
Sorry,
I'm not even.
sorry.
No, it's fine. This is just.
I
think like the Pacers game felt like one to sort of walk away from, and you want to not overanalyze it too much. This is a game I'm actually okay overanalyzing, because I think that some of the mistakes that occurred are fixable, but then some of them are kind of you see a lot of the fans in the chat are very frustrated. Troll Thug asks, when is Exum coming back? It's just wild that we're even asking that question. It's a valid question. It's wild that we're asking a question about like one of the last guys signed to the roster.
I've got the numbers.
Okay, go ahead.
Mavericks are averaging about just a shade over 25 assists per game for this season. So under their season average for 3 straight games. One of those games, Pacers woefully under it. This one, 23. They're 2 off.
I mean, and that means 9 assists from non-Luka players.
That is correct. 3 from Kyrie. In the starting lineup, you had 6 total assists outside of Luka.
Yeah.
You had 3 total assists from the bench. One of them was Jaden Hardy in 5 minutes. So it's 3 games, so I don't want to say this is what it's going to look like every single game. But I would not be shocked if teams are like, you know what? I would much rather Luka have to look like Superman in single coverage than give limited players open opportunities. You know what I mean? Like, I know that when you blitz Luka, it's like, we want anyone else to beat us but Luka. But also it's like, what if you have PJ Washington against single? Like, are you scared of PJ Washington against single coverage? Are you scared Josh Green against single coverage? Are you more scared if Josh Green has a wide open corner 3 because no one's guarding him because they're guarding 2 guys on Luka or 2 guys on Kyrie? Like, I wonder if teams are like, you know what, these role players, even though they're better than they were before the trade deadline, I still would rather, I wonder if these teams, like, I don't think PJ Washington is going to score 20 against us.
Which, I mean, if you're looking at Kyrie's root numbers, his numbers are still pretty dang amazing. And so
they're both of them, Luke and Kyrie, they've been shooting incredible
tonight and they lost.
Yeah. And again, it's not like they're shooting. They've been efficient in all 3 of these games. So it's not necessarily that they're like taking bad shots or taking shots away from people. It's just kind of the way they've been guarded, and they need to counter.
Yeah.
But how do you counter? I don't know how you counter right now, because presumably it's what they did to get that 10-point lead. The stuff with PJ inside the 3.
I really did love the stuff with PJ and pick and rolls going downhill. Like,
yep.
he got fouled a lot. He's got to hit his free throws. If you're taking away the Lively and Gafford pick and rolls, there are pick and rolls available. Like, do the Mavericks need to go run more small pick and rolls? Like, I don't like the pick. It's not fair. They work because Luka's an amazing isolation player. But I get a little frustrated at the pick and rolls for switches that don't result in any other actions. I mean, I just feel like, and this has been a criticism. It's a criticism when they lose. When they win, we don't even talk about it. But I just feel like there's a lot of stale playmaking going on. And part of that is the recipe, the process. Like, if Luka is the game plan, then that's what you're going to do. But I do feel like that there are ways that they can get other things other than like different ISO Luka looks, where it's like, oh, well, Luka's not going to dribble the ball up the floor this time, but he's going to go post up at 17 feet.
Yeah, and then isn't this what it comes back to when it's like, why are they so good on these out of timeout plays, which they are, the data is there, and they're running this motion and movement and stuff, and then they run their normal half court stuff, and it's like, wait, where's this? Like, why is there such a difference? And I think you're seeing, like, when you're getting blitzed, when Luka's getting blitzed almost every time, like he was before the All-Star break, you don't need a ton of sets because, like, the team is creating the advantage for you. It's just a matter of, can those players, either make the open shot or make the right read when they catch the ball with open space. Like, you don't necessarily need a bunch of motion and off-ball offense when you've got two on the ball, because the defense is already presenting you with an advantage. You just have to take advantage of it, so to speak. But so that now we're seeing they're not sending two to the ball. It's like, okay, now you got to do something. You got to get these guys moving. You got to get them in motion. You got to run a set. You got to get these guys going toward the basket. You got to do something, because now they're not blitzing. And it feels like the Mavericks these last 3 games have been like, okay, Luka, Kyrie, just do your thing, and that's it. And there's not a backup plan to that.
So MJ Wilson makes a comment, heliocentric Luka. Yes and no, because the same stuff happens when Luka is on the bench. Like,
it happens with Kyrie on the floor when he's running bench units.
Where they're running, like, they're not running. Kyrie's a point guard. He's a scoring guard too, but he knows how to run an offense.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they're running an offense. I feel like they run a high, a couple of double screens at the top of the key, and they see what comes out of it. And that's where this starts to get really interesting, because, okay, Kyrie, unbelievable playmaker, but why don't you have any easy button plays? Do you know what I mean? Like, kid is,
and I feel like they haven't, because why do they get these easy buckets on all these out of timeout plays? Like, how does that not translate to more of that in the flow of a game?
Yeah, this Cowboy said it looks like rec ball, and there are elements of that. And it's just, God, there was this amazing play that got broken down to nobody's business, basically screaming, why is Tim Hardaway on the floor? And it was this Pacers play, happened in the last game. And a couple of, like, big NBA stat heads get involved with it to do a lot of film work. Seth Partnow, other people. The way Carlisle overloaded the floor and basically broke the Mavericks defense into pieces is something that you don't see happening outside of Luka's individual brilliance. It is not like, I know he likes these these pick and rolls. I know he's very good at the isolation post ups, but there's got to be other things that you can do. There just has to be. I don't know.
Yeah, no, there is. And I think they haven't had to rely on it because, again, they're getting blitzed. Luka's getting blitzed. You don't need to do it. Teams have countered, and I don't know if it's going to keep going, but, I mean, they're playing some pretty good teams.
Because it's not going to work at certain points. Like, they might blitz the Raptors by 25 points tomorrow night. Like,
yeah, even if the Raptors might switch and not blitz Luka at all, and this same stat line occurs, but the Mavericks win by 25 points. Like, if Luka scores 45 tomorrow, they might win by 15. Like,
Next best step says, I wonder if the Mavericks are deliberately holding aces up their sleeves for the playoffs. Is that a thing coaches do? Oh my God, yes. Rick Carlisle almost refused to spam the Kyrie KP. I'm sorry, the Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis pick and roll because it worked too well. Like, coaches are terrified of stuff getting on tape too much, because then they figure out ways to block it, because that's what the NBA is. But the Luka Kyrie 2-man offensive rating, like when they're on the floor together, I'm pretty sure it's the best offense in the league. Full stop. I could be wrong about this.
I mean, I could look it up for you, but I could also take your word for it because I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Pretty sure
So Man, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we should really hammer home from this game, because this game is one that should be picked apart a little bit more. And I feel like we've done a pretty good job of it while acknowledging the things that did work.
They need Dante Exum back,
which is so crazy.
Which is like a worry, because there's also like, well, this will be solved when Exum comes back, but it's also like, okay, but he's been hurt his whole career. Like, if you're relying on him, there's trouble with that. I mean, look at this game. Look at the Cavs. The Cavs had like Levert comes off the bench, plays 28 minutes, has 6 assists. Mavericks had 3 assists total from their bench. Like,
which getting assists from Karis LeVert is such a bonus. Like, that dude is Tim Hardaway through a fax machine 9 times. You guys think that Hardaway sucks. LeVert is bleh.
But you look at the Maverick, like, since Exum's been hurt, like, their backup point guard is Kyrie. Like, it's staggering. Luka goes out, Kyrie stays on, and Kyrie runs the offense, which is fine. Like, staggering.
I just wish he had an offense to run.
Yeah, that's they need to look at these 3 games and see what these teams are doing. Because, yes, it is really cool for your 2 best players to combine for 70 points every game. But when the rest of your team is basically combining for like 90 outside of that, like or not 90, definitely not 90.
Not 90, that'd be great.
They'd be the best team in the
league.
Good. Yeah, if they're combining for 40, let's say, 40 or 50, 45, then there's some problems. Like, that's not sustainable. Luka played 41 minutes. His usage was really high. So they just need to do, and what, like you said, before we go, I want to bounce this off you, because you've been bringing up the PJ point about him in space and screening and doing stuff inside the arc. That's absolutely what they should be doing more of. And maybe that's a counter to how teams are guarding them straight up and switching and not blitzing. How do you think that they continue to utilize PJ like that if they have one of Lively or Gafford on the floor? Because presumably that means PJ is rolling into someone, whether it's Lively or Gafford, standing in the dunker spot, so to speak.
That's a good question. That gets back to the point that we just need him to hit like a corner 3.
He hit a corner 3 tonight.
Sure.
And that's probably why Maxi's playing a lot too. If Maxi's the other big with PJ, he can roll into the lane all he wants, because Maxi is more than capable of spotting up and spacing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he only makes 1 3-pointer every 3 games, but I mean, it's still a thing. At least he's not in the paint, at least. So
yep.
Yeah, there's some. I think what I want to end with is, obviously these 2 losses are not great, but they're not in trouble. But there are things to work on. Like, there are things that this coaching staff, I think, can identify on tape. Hopefully, knock on wood. Like it's feeling like there's stuff to work on that they can learn from. It's just now, are they going to learn from it, and are they going to let something like this linger? Because basketball players are not robots. Like, they are pissed off. If they do not channel this energy in a good way, they could absolutely lose to Toronto tomorrow. So we'll see.
All right. I guess I'm going to do a live show because I think enough people want to chat.
Oh, the people are going to want to chat.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Okay. We'll host a little group therapy here, and we'll be back here in just a few minutes. Those of you who are listening on the audio stream, look for the group therapy probably around lunchtime tomorrow, because the Mavericks play the Raptors tomorrow night, and we will be back probably not as early. I don't know, probably around the same time, 9:30. We'll see where we go. Does that make sense to you?
Makes sense to me. Bye, everyone. Have a good live show.
All right. We'll be back in just a minute. Go Mavs. Hello and welcome back to what is now, should be, Pod Mavericks presents Group Therapy, if I can find the correct overlay. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. It is Tuesday night, 9:45. I'm Kirk, editor-in-chief over at MavsMoneyball.com. You're joining us after we had just done our initial recap show following the Dallas Mavericks losing in really monstrously painful fashion, 121-119. I'm sort of emotionally spent, frankly, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. So in the comments, there is a link which should be pinned. I attempted to pin it, where you can click on that link and come join this show live and let me know what your takes on this game are. Right now I got Brian waiting, but if anybody else wants to talk, feel free to join in and tap in and we'll talk a little basketball. Hey man, what's up?
Dude, I'm kind of where you are. My skin was still crawling for like an hour after the game ended, but
Yeah.
I think I've calmed down now. I'm just, God, that sucked for a number of reasons, mostly just because it didn't need to happen. There were like 8 different off ramps
Sure.
from this outcome,
Mm-hmm.
and we just didn't take any of them. Some of them were like blocked off before we could get there.
Yep.
But
I mean, there's like, that's why I said in the other show, like, if you have a bone to pick, I think the only like for the whole season of like problems that keep coming up, I think the only bone you can't actually complain about is Luka taking all the shots in crunch time, because I don't think he shot the ball after like the 5. Like, he took a really bad short 3, and then I don't think he shot the ball again. Everybody else, and that's a normal complaint whenever things go sideways. Like, Luka needs to get everybody involved. He didn't touch the ball. But everything else, from kids coaching to Tim Hardaway's defense to Tim Hardaway playing to it goes across the board. I mean, and then there were like the boneheaded mistakes. I mean, the Mavericks had how many turnovers? The Mavericks had a grand total of 5 turnovers, and one of them was Kyrie walking out of bounds. Like, that's so bizarre.
yeah, dude, we had like I can run down the full list. We've got Josh Green playing well and then just his elbow exploding or whatever again and being in and out of the game for like 20 minutes of game time as Cleveland was making their run. So that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things with Kid. I can't wait to be done with this shit. I'm just so tired of him for multiple reasons.
I don't think he's going anywhere, man. I got some thoughts. It's like things have to really go sideways in the playoffs, because it feels like that like this level of coaching works for the superstars. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm done just like hoping for him to be fired. It's not going to happen. I've just got to hope for like unconscionable things that I can't say on this podcast, and maybe if one of those comes to pass, then we'll have a new coach. But they're not going to fire him. It just is what it is. It's fine. I won't say I've made peace with it. I've made something with it, because it just is what it is. The Tim, it like with Tim, I just, it's not even fully his fault. Not fully. Like, he stinks, but he gave really good effort on defense in the third quarter.
Right.
Now, it will lead inquiring minds to ask, okay, why don't you just do this all game, especially when you're bricking? It's not like you contribute anything on offense. But played really well in the third quarter, even though he couldn't hit the ocean, whatever that saying is. Yeah, and then just the last Kid taking forever to call that timeout, waiting until the 4th Strus 3 to call a timeout.
It was over 45. Like, it was 67 seconds of game action, basically a minute and change in real time. And so, like, the hater in me wants to blame Kid for all. Like, I was mainly shocked not after the third one. The fourth one, it's because the second one, it happened in like 30 seconds. Then the third one happened. Like, it's really easy to kind of quarterback this after the fact, but I want to say I at least understand it if I don't agree with it.
I would have understood it after. I'm not gonna lie. I think that not even because of like Strus, there should have been a timeout call after that second 3, because he should have tore into Kyrie's ass for that turnover. Like, him and him, like both of them should have got it. Like somebody needed to communicate better as to what was going on and who was taking the ball out. Like somebody needed to be held responsible for that in the moment. And who knows what happens after that? Probably nothing. They probably still give up the exact same shot. But when he calls time out, Josh came into the game,
which is good,
and was out.
Yeah.
Right. And so maybe if that happened sooner, who knows? We don't know. It was pointed out to me by one of my friends on Twitter that the last three, the one that happened in the corner, I attributed that to Tim because he was Tim's assignment at the time. Tim got screened, and the dude who was supposed to be trailing him to the corner was Luka, and he just doesn't have the foot speed to catch Strus running at full speed to the corner. So I'll give him a pass on that one. I'm like, he tried to tell me no, the third three he got screened and it was like a dribble handoff. Whatever.
That whole
like,
section,
I don't care.
That minute and a half is what everybody is going to scrutinize to death, I think. Yeah.
It's just so funny because like we had Josh not get did he get called? No, he didn't get called for a foul for tackling Darius Garland in half court. Donovan Mitchell having a chance to end the game with Luka on him on the left wing, and he just dribbles the ball off his foot, or Luka like swipes it away, whatever happens. Just a lot of bad turnovers from Donovan Mitchell. He really had like Max Strus and that 1-3 that he banked after Jared Allen played hockey and like threw Maxi Kleber and Josh within like 5 seconds of each other and didn't get anything called. But that 3 that he banked and then those Max Strus threes, they really saved him because Donovan had a terrible close to that game. And it just didn't matter. Like he's playing like that. Garland is in absolute hell because he can't get anything going against PJ. And yeah, man, it's disappointing because we had all these things going our way. We kicked this team's ass until like 4 minutes left, and then it just all kind of evaporated.
Yeah, the second half was a really nice, impressive kind of comeback. I was really pleased with the Mavericks play. It was an enjoyable game. I know that first quarter, or really, it was like parts of the second quarter were pretty rough. But then Luka went really nuts. It was it was a lot of fun. This was a game. I meant to talk about this with Josh. The Mavericks, Luka hasn't played in Cleveland for the past 2 years prior to this one. Once because of actual injury, and then once because they sat him, and that was the game last year. I don't know if you remember this, where Kemba Walker sacrificed the rest of his knee, only I think for the Mavericks to lose anyways.
Yeah.
And Luka they sat Luka, which like I've always found that very frustrating because if I'm a Slovenian Mavericks fan or a Slovenian Luka fan, that's one of the biggest. I think it might be like the greater Cleveland area might be the biggest Slovenian population in America, particularly in the Midwest for sure, or at least where there's And so it just felt very frustrating to me that they sat Luka in a game where it's like some of his biggest supporters could be. It was really great to see him have an incredible game tonight, only for the Mavericks to kind of waste it. Somebody pointed out in the chat here, Luka turns 25 tomorrow. I don't know. You're going to have, tell me this. This is the most painful loss of the season, right? Kind of
this season.
This season, I can't really think of many that like had me coming in here like hot and heavy and like burn it all down. I mean, I'm sure I have. Like they've lost.
Oh no, I can think of a couple.
What am I missing?
They might not be worse than this, but they're right there. They could be worse than this. That first Denver loss in the play-in game.
No, I meant this season.
Oh, not playing. I'm sorry. For the start of the in-season tournament.
Okay.
With the shitty cord.
Denver's just so damn good. It's hard to be super pissed about that.
And that's where the next one comes in. That second Pelicans game.
Yeah, that was bad.
When they sat every fucking body, and Luka still got his ass kicked by Herb Jones.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, that might still be.
That was frustrating. But it's like in terms of like sheer rage though, and like this one has to be number one.
This one.
Memphis loss, like one of the Memphis losses was terrible. We lose in Memphis twice. Some of these losses are pretty stupid, but this
the Memphis
one
loss where Kyrie was playing like a G League player. That one legitimately had me seeing red. But like I was so white hot mad after this game. Like I responded to you on a tweet that I literally like only read half of it. Like I missed the word because I was just I legit I was not seeing everything in front of me.
Both
Cavs
got
like every other word.
Mr. Garcia points out in the chat the first Cavs game where they were down, like they 20-point comeback. That was horrendous.
Well, yeah, but TJ, like at least that's a game where we just got our ass kicked by a better team. I was mad about that, but I'm not as mad as I am about this, because we had this game in hand and we had this game won.
Right.
And all of a sudden we didn't. And then there's so many things you can look back on and be like, well, if this didn't happen, maybe if Kyrie showed up to the game in the first half, we're not even having this discussion.
Yep.
And I tweeted about that before the game, because I think the first quarter and a half I missed because I was at the grocery store, and I was like, can we just please not do the thing where Kyrie just can't do shit in the first half and then comes back and scores 18 in the fourth, and we pretend that he had a good game, because then that'll be 2 games in a row. And that's precisely what happened. And he was stellar in the fourth and midway through the third. His runs were needed, but we also needed him in the first half.
Yep.
So that's something for an actual offensive coach to figure out. We don't have one of those, so maybe 2 seasons from now.
All right, well, it doesn't look like anybody else wants to chat tonight, so I think I'm going to close this one out early, which is fine. Sometimes people just want to go away. It's very funny. Our views in our last podcast were half of the previous win, and that's just we lost. Somebody said we lost to Toronto already too. It's a good
look, dude. I didn't want to say anything.
We did lose. No, I think he meant we lost to them already this season. I read that as we lost.
To be fair, we lost to them because Siakam kicked our ass. But I'm telling you, if this team is anything like the team before the trade deadline, I can feel that L coming tomorrow. I can just feel it. I don't think they are though. So I think they take care of business. But boy, if they do, look, man.
This one leaves a salty. This one leaves a bad taste in your mouth. This isn't an ass whooping. It is a collapse, and sometimes collapses are galvanizing.
Yeah, this is less an ass whooping than a heart attack as you're about to close the fight out.
Oh, God. All right, man. Well, everybody else, thanks so much for hanging out. This has been just Kirk and Brian on Group Therapy. I'm just going to post this as one podcast and let everybody get it out of their system. No reason to waste their times. Everybody be good, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow night. Go Mavs.